Hello, welcome to the BWIO show. Today, we're here with Elise Christina Jenkins, who's a mezzo soprano from the DMV area. So I'm so honored to have you here today.
Hi, thank you for having me.
So what I want to first off by talking about is when did you fall in love with opera? When did you know opera was the field for you?
So, as we speak, I'm still learning about opera in its form, but when I first fell in love with it was possibly my undergrad at Old Dominion University. And I studied with many different teachers at that time because ODU, which is located in Norfolk, Virginia, was trying to really build its music and arts and dance department. And the first time that I actually saw an opera, a live opera, and unfortunately, forgive me, I forgot the name of it. It was at ODU in the performance hall, but it was in conjunction with the Virginia Opera as well as the Norfolk Performing Arts Field. And a couple of my colleagues who were much older than me, as well as my first voice teacher from graduating high school, Dr. Walter Swan, was in that production. It was a one act opera, very obscure. It was in English and it didn't follow the traditional bel canto or any form, but it was interesting because they were singing the most beautiful art form you can think of. But it was definitely off topic, and I'm like, okay, this is opera. It is. And I've had many different moments in my life where I just fell in love with it, and I think it is a exquisite art form that everyone, whether you are in the audience or on stage, should absolutely appreciate and love it. One moment that I do want to bring up is a couple years ago when I saw Don Carlo um, at the Kennedy Center with the Washington National Opera. Absolutely mind blowing. It definitely Verdi is definitely a prominent operatic composer, as you know, but that opera in itself, the characters, the story, the singing, the plot, I definitely give my props because, and also Eric Owens was in it, and I think once I mentioned Eric Owens and Jamie Burton and all these people who I aspire and much respect, I love is moments like that that I absolutely love, and there's many others, but if I had to pick those two, was my undergrad experience and seeing Don Carlo at the Kennedy Center.
Yes, and I love the Kennedy Center because this is like it's well, I guess it prides itself on being the center of American opera and
Mhm.
just highlighting American talent. And also, it's just so intimate, and you can kind of see what's going on. You can get the feel of it, and I feel like they do a great job of connecting with the audience at the Kennedy Center. So that's amazing. And then the Mezzo and Don Carlo. I mean, that
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
amazing.
absolutely, yes.
So in your studies with opera, what really helped you to stay focused when you were like learning about opera? Especially, I feel like technique is always the little bugaboo. It always gets us. So
Yeah, it is. I'm glad you asked this. So, I actually am transitioning to a dramatic soprano or a spinto soprano because my teacher who I study with now, Russell Penny, he is a tenor, a I don't want to call him a Helden tenor because that would be kind of politically incorrect, but he is like a big tenor. He's sung Strauss and Verdi. Um, he definitely knows that I have high notes, and we're exploring some of the things within my range. And I have to say, with the encouragement of him, along with my family, my faith in God, and some of my friends, and I use friends very lightly, that have encouraged me to continue on with this form because they know I've been singing this way for over a decade and I'm still learning. But I also don't put things above a pedestal, meaning, even though I sing opera, I still listen to rap. I still listen to hip hop. I still listen to R&B. It's just that I sing opera because that's what I'm trying to be good at. And I hopefully in certain moments of my life will want to be good at. And with the encouragement of the people who have donated their time or wrote me an email or sent a post on social media, that's what keeps me going. I do it for them. And since this is a Black woman in the opera interview, I want to see more of us succeed. I realized that the topic that we'll get to later, I didn't know about a lot of these ladies until later in life. Like I knew about Marian Anderson because I portrayed her in a church setting because she was the first African American artist to ever perform a leading role um, at the Met. She wasn't the first because there was someone else before and I forgot her name, but it's moments like that that keep me going. And I hope with this generation that there needs to be more of a presence of Black artists that, you know, give this art it's sacredcy in its higher form, and it's important because at least I didn't have that, and I want the next generation, if they choose to study this way or even just hear it, that at least they have these outcomes in this exposure.
Yes, most definitely. That's what my goal is, honestly, is to just show that there's just more than one Black opera singer. There's more than one, and there's so many of us, and there's such a big community of us who are supporting each other and just lifting up opera in a way that is dear to us because it's our music too. So I would love to talk a little bit about your transition to dramatic soprano and just about, I guess Fox is always like a weird thing because it's always limiting, honestly. I mean,
Hmm.
labels are labels. So it's just like, so you think about people like Grace Bunbury and Jesse Norman who kind of, and Shirley Barrett too, who really kind of redefine what it meant to have a voice and how to use that voice in the best way possible. And
Hmm.
sometimes that is singing mezzo, sometimes that is singing soprano. So
Hmm.
how, I mean, with the transition, how are you feeling about your voice and what it means to just be a singer who is singing something different now?
I love it, but I had to grow to love it. With all these singers in many different categories, I agree with you that I don't necessarily want to put myself in a box or flock, but I do believe that I am going a certain way, i.e., Verdi soprano. But at the same time, that doesn't mean I don't want to sing Carmen, because Shirley Verrett and Grace Bunbury have both sung Carmen very, very fiercely, and they killed it. But they've also sung Tosca. They've also done every type of Verdi mezzo and soprano role you can think of, and they were of the exceptions. And to see both of them, not only Black, but they were also dark skinned like me, to kill these roles, I think that says a lot. And with Jessie Norman, listening to some of her earlier recordings singing Aida and Leonora, I'm so inspired. But she also went the German route because she absolutely flourished in the German language, in the French language, especially in the leader and the French melody. I am very inspired by that these ladies and more were able to be versatile with their voices and the technique and continue on. And I'm sure they had their struggles and their days where they didn't want to do not anything, but they kept going for years and decades up until, unfortunately, with two of them to their deaths. But one is still living, but they were able to find that healthy balance and still find that, okay, I'm good at this, I'm good at that. And with their many countless coaches and teachers, they were able to find what works for them. And I like that. I think as singers, we also need to sometimes, not all the time, take a tiny step back. Okay, am I good at this or good at that? And I do believe opera singers, I think we can sing anything. We're the best at it. But I think we do need to kind of hone down on what we're actually good at. And that's not a bad thing because it does keep our voices healthy. It keeps it going. And I love that. But we also have to grow with it.
Yeah, I definitely agree because it's like for me, I'm 31, and I mean that's not too young, but that's relatively young when you think about singing
Right,
career. But it is like my voice. I'm seeing the change happen. So whereas I was singing like hard no man undergrad, I
right,
don't sing it no more. I can still
right.
sing as high. I can still
Yeah.
sing high. It's just like my voice is changing and it's going in this different direction. So I just did. I mean, I just did Juliet, which was, I mean, which was fun. It was fun, but it definitely took my voice in a different direction. So now I'm just like, okay, so where do I fit in this range? And it's like there's just so much beauty in it. You just go with the flow. You go with the journey that the voice is going on, and then eventually you'll see like, okay, this makes sense. This feels good to sing. And I feel like I'm getting there now. Where I'm like, okay, this feels good to sing, and I feel like this is where I should go. Of course, with your advice of your instructions and stuff like that. But if it once it feels good, I feel like that's kind of where you're the direction you're going in.
Mhm, mhm.
So you talked a little bit about some of the trailblazers in Black women in opera. I just wanted to learn a little bit more about how did you discover other Black opera singers?
Well, the internet and reading books and articles. I would say about 2.5 years ago, um, this lady who's in charge of this local opera company in Arlington is called Opera Nova, and she would mail me things about Black opera singers. And that's where I really started to get really interested and really just I guess being a bit of a research nerd to figure out where do these women how do these women develop these talents, where is their story, their backstories, because everybody has different experiences how they got to the top. And obviously I think she felt that I needed that, I guess that push a little bit. Not to say that I didn't have it. I've always had it, but I think she probably saw something visually in me and how I care about people that are on stage that look like me. Often in times in shows, I'm the only Black person. And while, as you know from experience, that's going to happen a lot. But I do think times are changing that I at least want to see an all Black cast at some sort of in any opera. I mean, I could think of Aida and Carmen. It would be nice to have an all Black cast in those operas and more. Um, but I think she was one of the, I guess, the first people just recently to say, there's this book, read on it, and I absolutely love it. And it's just inspiring to me to know that these women sacrifice so much. um, some of them had families, some of them were grandparents, I mean, children of slaves. And, we are not too far from our generation, not too far from civil rights movement. And I just find these stories very inspiring, and it encourages me to focus and study a couple of days a week, if not every day, these roles and these arias and have these coachings. I mean, I know with COVID, things are very, very limited, but at least I'm looking at the music and I'm listening to these refined artists. And it takes a lot. And with reading these books and articles, I'm very inspired. I am. This is a career that I'm going to do for the rest of my life. I'm not turning back. I mean, I will find other side things to help me make that money to survive, because we're starving artists unless you're at the top. But it's things like that I wish I would have known earlier. But like you, I'm in my 30s and I want to continue on. I'm still learning about opera itself. I'm still learning about some of these Black opera singers. I mean, of course, there's Barrett, Norman, Bunbury, Battle, you name it. But there is so much more. Like I think a couple years recently, I just learned about Elizabeth Greenfield Taylor. I didn't know about her, and I'm like, wow. You would think, with my knowledge, Marian Anderson, I would think there was someone else before her that broke a racial barrier. No, and I'm not saying it's not sad, but I would think with my research, I'm like, I would think I would know that, but no, until I read that book, she definitely wasn't necessarily the first of the first.
Yeah, I think that it's very interesting. Running this page is when I actually started learning a lot more about opera and a lot more about Black opera singers, because it's like you said, it's like you think that this person is the first, and it's like, oh, they were inspired, that somebody inspired them to do it.
Right.
Okay. And then somebody inspired that other person to do it too. So it's just like kind of figuring out what this genealogy of Black opera performance looks like. And I think that it's a really fun journey to just like make the connections and say, oh, this person is like popping during this time, and why did they not get the credit they deserve? And I
Right.
think in the book Black Opera, she talks about, the author Dr. Andre talks a little bit about just how back in the day, especially like towards the end of slavery and right after during Reconstruction, it's like they were not giving black opera singers the title of opera singer. So it's just
Yeah.
like you had to find out who was singing what types of music, and then that is how you kind of classify them as opera singers. So I mean, it's definitely intentional, the history being kind of discombobulated like that. But I think it's a beautiful opportunity now with all the technology and the capabilities we have to just kind of connect those pieces and like have more research and see what people were doing beforehand and the research they were doing and kind of connect the dots. It's kind of my favorite thing to do. I like research and I like music, so it go hand in hand.
And it opens up so much. And the book that I read, one of the ladies learned over 20 roles, but she never had a chance to perform them. And I'm like, you know what? If there are many reasons why I'm not giving up, but if I had to pick a top 3 or a top 10, that is one reason why I'm like, you know what? I don't care how many roles I learned, I will perform all of them, if not some of them. There's a reason, and it's to me, she took the time to learn these roles, the languages, the technique behind it, the style. And you're telling me she did not have one opportunity to learn them? No, that's not okay. I have to keep doing this. I have to keep performing. I have to keep studying.
I love that. And thinking about just like staying motivated, how has the pandemic or the quarantine time been for you?
um I don't like it, but it has given me more time to study a little bit more on certain roles. Like right now, I'm learning some Verdi soprano roles like Leonora and Il Trovatore. And my teacher last week, because I do, with safety precautions, still see him in person. He did give me Verdi's Aida. And he's like, because he knows that we're trying to fully transition. I mean, I will say that I am a soprano. I do have mezzo soprano tendencies, but I am a soprano now. He knows that I want to study these roles because he keeps saying, when stuff opens up, please be ready. And I feel like I want to get to that point and study these roles and memorize some of these lines so that when the opportunity comes for people to hear me sing, I have these things ready to go, the arias and the roles. Um, and the quarantine also has helped me YouTube a lot more on a lot of these singers, not just also Black singers, but to hear Callis and Caballé, who have brilliant um, techniques, especially when it comes to breathing. But I also don't want to tune out the Black woman who came before me. I do not. That is not something that I will never, ever do. It's given me opportunity to just listen to people a little bit more. Because before quarantine, before the COVID pandemic ever began, I had shows, a couple of them each month, and I was on the run all the time. And when quarantine happened, it allowed me to take a chill pill and slow down, still practice, still study, but also take a break a little bit. And I think that break was much needed. But quarantine has definitely encouraged me to continue study each week, listen to people, still stay motivated. I also do coachings online with someone in Florida, but then I also see my teacher each week. And it just allowed me to, you know what, it just motivates me to still continue studying, but also know that in real life, your health and your safety are just as important. And I don't think I've ever taken a gig right now since last March that has allowed me to go out of my way because we are in a global crisis. But it has allowed me to just kind of refine stuff right now and listen to a lot more people.
Most definitely. I'm the same way. Like I'm just learning more roles. I feel like I'm singing more than I've ever, performed in my life, honestly, and just like loving my body, my technique, my voice, and all. It gives me that time to just really grow the artist in me. So when, like you said, when it's time to go out there, it's time to go out there. You know, you want to be ready.
Mhm.
So thinking about all of that and just staying motivated and pressing forth and persevering, what's next for you? What's coming up?
So I do have a virtual performance in April or May of this year. It's with the Baltimore Composer Forum. And this is where a couple of local, obviously Baltimore composers and librettists sent out some artists, both singers and instrumentalists, their music they just composed not too long ago. I actually just got the email last night. And so this will give me a couple months to prepare and look at the music, but we will perform it virtually because we can't have an audience, not right now, in April. And it's all new music. That's one thing that I needed to add. As much as I love opera, new music has definitely opened up the classical music forum for me. Still learning about it, but I find it fascinating because, like, oh wow, I get to perform actual living composers' music. And so that will be in April. And so between probably tomorrow, because I like to take weekends off, between tomorrow and up to April, I will learn that music, perfect it, and go over it many, many times. And that's coming up in April. And in June, um, I will be performing a different style, different cast of the Magic Flute. It's called the Black Flute with In Series, which is another opera company in DC that I performed with. And it's going to be an all black cast, yay. But we are the composer and librettist. I mean, the librettist and the composer, not Mozart because he's long gone, are rejuvenating some of the text in the Magic Flute. They're going to keep some arias and the ensembles, but when it comes to certain individual parts, it's all new, but it's an all black cast. I'm Papagena, so I believe my duet will stay the same. But as far as like my own aria, because Papagena in the Magic Flute, the original Magic Flute does not have an original aria. So they are, as we speak, trying to come up music for it, and that's exciting. That performance will happen in June, and if all goes well, depending on our country, it's supposed to be the first live performance of the season because the In series all this year has been all online. And if things go well with the new administration as well as CDC guidelines, June will be the first time the In series since the pandemic has begun will be the first live performance, ending the 2020-2021 season. But we'll see. If it's not live, it'll be virtual just like everything else. So those are two big things that are coming up for me right now. But I'm still also going to learn my Aida, my Leonoras, everything. So I have a pretty packed year. It's just, but it also just feels different because it's like, wow, I hope some of these things are performed live, but I know some of them are not because of our safety guidelines and what's going on in the world.
That sounds so exciting. You are busy. I love it. I love it. You're working.
Thank you. Thank
I think
you.
that is so beautiful to see because, like, even now, like in quarantine, people we're kind of finding our footing, but we just like expected 2021 to be so much different. And it's just like some things are not, some things are different, some things are more hopeful, and some things are staying the same. But to have that perseverance and that hope, I think that's what's going to help the people who are listening to this episode. Is just like the hope and that perseverance and that looking towards the future is just like so important. It's like staying in the present, of course, but like looking towards like I have this coming up and I'm going to be working towards this, which just
Hmm.
keeps your spirit lifted. Honestly, just keeps you encouraged.
Hmm. And also with last year, with everything that happened with oh my gosh, the killings of George Floyd and Breonna Taylor, right before this interview, I actually listened to one of your interviews with the Black Voices Matter, and they all three of them spoke from their hearts. I definitely give it to them as well as other people that are pushing this platform. I don't see how we are living still in this time where people like you and me have to fight. Yes, I'm an opera singer, but I'm Black first. And I think we have to always remind ourselves that even though these things may not affect us directly, it still hurts. And with me living in the district, I captured some of these protests. I'm not too far from it. And it was awesome to be part of history, but it's also not okay to know that our outgoing administration, thank God, didn't really, I mean, he doesn't care. And I don't like to get political because politics and opera can go one way or the other. But it last year also taught me you got to fight and you got to keep going. 2020, I definitely learned a lot. I really, really did. And I had conversations with my family members, and we definitely had deep, deep conversations about a lot of stuff that's going on in our country. But they know that I sing opera. They know that I'm going to keep going and not giving up. But we're a Black family. We definitely have experienced some of these things, not in a way that it caused us life or death, but discrimination and microaggression. It hurts, and I just hope that this year things are different. And I know they're going to be different with the new administration, but I just want, and I said this to a friend I was texting before our interview. I just want stuff to be fair for all, especially for Black people. That's it.
Right, and that's a beautiful sentiment because it's like you said, we're not immune to what happens in the world because we are people. And I think that's another thing that Dr. Andre said in the book Black Opera. She's like, the body is not a blank slate. It's just not a performing body. We have our own emotions and our own traumas and our own joys and all those things that go on in us, and that contributes to the art, and that can sometimes make it even more difficult to perform. I think having that hope and having that reality that we are connected to the world and there we all have a role to play in creating this more fair world and creating this more equal reality. So I thank you for continuing to sing opera and to continuing to uplift the voices of our historic performers and just being hopeful and showing people like that joy and that hope to stay encouraged. I think that's very.
Thank you. And same with you. I mean, I missed this conference in October. I forgot what I was doing that day, but I figured again, I got to do my part. I am a Black opera singer. I have to contribute.
I appreciate it so much. I really do. So, okay, this is our last question. Not where, if you could write an opera, what would it be about?
This is going to be weird, but I'll just say it. I like this movie, and I'm a '90s baby. Set it off. um, I say that, and I know it's part of the storyline is not good, but you have four Black females who do not so great things, but they all have a backstory. Um, and they rose out of, I'd say, a poor neighborhood and had to do the impossible. Um, and I think that'd be wonderful. We turn it to an opera or a play because they each have a story. Um, and again, I know they rob banks and there are stories, except for one, and then tragedy. But like I said, I'm a '90s baby, and I would like to see some of this actually turn into an art form. I mean, if Dreamgirls is based on the '60s and the story of Supremes, why can't Set It Off, which is totally fictional but probably relatable, be turned into an opera?
Yes, because they do express the human experience. Because we
Yeah,
want to be loved, we want to have the money, we want to move up in society. We're
right.
motivated by all these different. That would be a great opera, and everybody die. What's up for one? But
It's
everybody
everyone. Yeah.
that's right on brand with opera.
Yeah, like why not? I mean, and some of the '90s movies like that can definitely be turned into musical theater or operas. That one especially, why not? It highlights a couple of things within the Black community. But I agree with you said we want to have nice stuff. We deserve nice stuff.
hmm Yes. Okay. So I'm looking forward to that. You done made somebody an idea right there. Trademark there, because that would make an excellent opera. And I feel like that would bring in a lot of community because they already know the story, so they're not gonna be
Yeah.
distracted by trying to figure out what's going on. They just get to
Right.
hear beautiful music, telling to a story that they already know. That's
Yep.
really cool. Awesome. Awesome. So thank you so much for joining us. Where can people find you? Where can they follow you? How can they support you?
So my artist Facebook page is Elise Christina Jenkins, comma, opera singer. You can find me on Facebook, same name, Elise Christina Jenkins. If you want to email me, trebleclef6@msn.com. And I don't know if my information is on the N Series or Opera Nova websites. I don't think they are because I know they're both rejuvenating their stuff. But yeah, you can find me on Facebook, literally. Easiest way to contact me.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us and thank y'all for watching.
Thank you so much.